Comment. Hello, thanks for letting me know.
Okay, cool. Should I go ahead and thank the sponsors and turn it over to you?
Yep, that sounds good.
All right. Let me mute the room real quick. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 New Orleans Poetry Festival. Thanks so much for coming. We want to go ahead and thank our major sponsors this year. We want to thank the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation and the Academy of American Poets. Because of them and their sponsorship, we were able to keep this year's virtual, virtual conference free and open to all. If you go to nolapoetry.com, we've got many more events for the rest of the month set up. You can find them all at nolapoetry.com, find the Zoom room entrance. You probably already know that, or you can watch us on Facebook, and we're putting our archives up on YouTube, which will appear again at nolapoetry.com. All right, this is the Nightboat Books reading, and I'd like to turn it over to Cole Swensen. Cole? Cole, you're muted. Let's see here.
Okay. I'd like to start by thanking both of you, Jonathan and Bill, for giving us this space and for welcoming us to this event, but also for all the work. It's just been such a fabulous month, and we can see that it's a lot of work for both of you. We'd also like to thank Nightboat, and there are a lot of people there to thank, including Kazim Ali, hooray, one of the co-founders, along with Jennifer Chappis. So thank you for that. And big thanks to the current director and publisher, Stephen Mónica. Thank you. In absentia, he can't be here today, but and then all the other wonderful people at the press, Kaylin, Lindsay, everybody who keeps it going. Thank you very, very much for all that work. Following Nightboat tradition, we're going to read in alphabetical order by first name. And so that will be Aditi Machado, Carrie Hunter, Cole Swensen, Erica Hunt, and Noah Ross. And I'm just going to turn it right over to Aditi.
Hello, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for being here. So my name is Aditi Machado, as you can see, and I'm the author of 2 Nightboat books, Some Beheadings and Emporium. And I'll be reading from the latter in just a bit, but first I want to thank the NOLA Festival and to Cole for putting this together. And to my fellow readers, I can't believe that I'm reading with you all today, but I think that's what you luck into when you get picked up by Nightboat, is that you're in this just amazing family of extraordinary writers. I'm so excited to be part of it. And also want to thank Kazim, Ali, Stephen Mónica, Lindsay Bowles, Kaylin Nardone, and really any intern or publicity manager that I've gotten to work with. You guys are really incredible. Cole had this great idea that we point to one other Nightboat book or author from this incredibly rich catalog. And I decided not to think too much about it because I knew it was going to be a hard decision. And what I did was just, what is the last Nightboat book that I bought? And that's what I'm going to mention here today. And that is this amazing reissue of Akilah Oliver's The She Said Dialogues, Flesh Memory, which was Akilah Oliver's first book that came out in 1999. And it's really great, 2 decades on, to have this reissue. It really is such a powerful book, sort of essential book of poetry, an essential work of feminist poetry, an essential work in a very long tradition of Black radical poetics. I wanted to do a little share screen thing, but out of fear of messing that up and taking up too much time, I'll just put a couple of links in the chat to this work, one of which includes a sort of really a clip from the poet herself reading that's the second link, and the first link is to the book on the Nightboat website. In the poet's own words, the She Said Dialogues, Flesh Memory, is a work, open quotes, that investigates the non-linear synapses between desire, memory. Blackness is both a personal identity and a non-essentialist historical notion, sexuality, and language. So I very much hope that you will follow up with both of those links if you don't know Akila Oliver's work. Okay. Now I'm surprisingly nervous today. I'm usually not doing so many of these Zoom readings, but I am today. Maybe it is the company. I'm really glad to have you all here. Okay, so I will get less nervous once I start reading from this book of mine called Emporium. I typically describe it as the journey of a merchant woman along this highly anachronistic 21st century silk route. She's a trader, I guess, of luxury goods, for example, silk, as well as of pantry essentials, for example, poetry. And I'll read from the opening poem and then a little bit from the closing poem. And the opening poem is the prologue. I came along a silk route. I came low like low things. Slow farcical leaves rimmed the trees. Some chic birds. I came along a long way, bolstered by merchants and prophylactics, and an obscure shade that became my practice. Sometimes I'd stop to confer with magnolias and find the writing on the margin creeping in. Or I'd look up at the archive, wandering hysterically like a womb. I'd stop at markets where rank matadors offered me coins. Magnalia, Magnalia, I heard those bards. I loved those shops, little bourgeois vessels of amnesia and maybe lockets. And sometimes I'd stop at theaters and watch the facsimile faces twatting by, the customary graffito on a restaurant tile. I'd forget my resistances, small wrists, and gussy up my deadlocked tongue. Nothing to see here, I'd say, but virtuoso shrubs. Along the silk route upon which I came the very neat devices of a memoirist or a politico. The silkiness of the route was of an old time, colored like old color photographs, with seepages into the corners of sight. Silk either wore me down or bore me out of a series of vacancies in which I scanned beaches. I was caught. Who caught me but a phantom certainty, certainty like a quality of gems and cautious doctrines. This was my distraction, and having to tighten my belt and all that. And yet I was arriving, words appearing on points of fact, prickly or vine-like. I proposed this and that, I was told, nation or rhapsody or wear simple clothes. I heard those statements as limpid fugues, traumas wandering out of musical bars. I had no purchase on those points. For a while, it was impossible to wear silk. I'd look up at the rouged sky. I'd consider the Jesuitic races, the long lines of vox sniffing, the climate refusing to change, the clematis reminding me I was to pursue a sound. I was to steal along. I was to barter my socialisms for some mastic, or gâteau slicked with rum, or a velvet speculum, or any sort of very erudite and algebraic, any sort of very telluric sort, a sottise, any sort of sottise. So I bartered my socialisms for something hierarchic, something hemorrhagic, hagiocratic, hermetical, helical, heretical, hieroglyphic, heteronymous, hairy. It was a hairy time. And my bush was a mulberry bush. It occasioned silk. Silk was a duration. I unpacked it, finally arriving, tender glissade, lowing in the fields, rennet skies up ahead, the emporium up ahead. All those haptic divinities, all those sounds I came to quell, asking, questioning, comment, 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 quelle laine, quel lin, quel coton, quel satin, quel crin, quel chanvre, quel cachemire, quel velours, quel tweed, quelle flanelle, quelle dentelle, quel calicot, quelle mousseline, quel serge, quel jute, quel jacquard, quel brocart, quel cuir, quel soir, quel soir, quelque soir, quelque soir, quel soir. And I'll just read a couple of sections from the closing poem of this book, which at this stage, the merchant woman is sort of relatively settled in a new country. And she writes an epistle to the Efficients, and that's spelled Efficience. From the Epistle to the Efficients. It is said, a kind of malignant mind creeps through the earth, lit only by the light of the movies. In the recession, an easterly mind is unable to give up its ideas, accordion C. In a forest of pines, sap pools, reports go awry, fold this. I am reporting on a country. There appears a corrosion on its hills. Birds are winding its landscape, using it to tell time. The report goes awry. Again, I am reporting on a country. There appears a buzzing on its sills. There appears a digital sort of graininess. A thin line appears, dividing estrangement from habit, lupines from tentacles, a spasm, a psalm. Again, I am reporting on a country. Traffic is a lovely, lingering sound. Shops are open. I neglect what neglects me, feel a bit petty. I drink a wine, I dress a vegetable. Quick, kimchi, slow down. Again, according to a source, I am reporting on a country. I am learning some skills. I am wielding them as others do. I am feeling things as I am wont to do. What do I observe? Bald classicism, fallen romanticism, the stained glass of basement revivals. What do I learn? Nothing sensible. Darkest of nights, smell of cyanide. Cruel jokes circulate. Here are some definitions of sex. Here are some anatomies of money. An impecunious fluid routs my flesh. Everyone, she says, everyone is doing the work, but what does the work do? I observe the cheap light turn slowly gibbous. Why not? The terror, she says, isn't, she says, we're fragments. The terror is, she says, we're whole. The copse witnessed through the opera glass turns into a guess what? Folded. Dank morning. I cultivate a primrose that is cryptic. An impresario, I unfold its petals. Method, méprise, nostalgia for a condition gone by when silk was a duration and I unpacked it. A rich quotidian engagement, whatever that is, too much of it, too much presence, too much absence, fold it. Thin line between vellum and blunt instrument, fold it. Late afternoon, aspic quivers, birds shed their descriptors. Hopkins-esque accents equip the air with plain joy, then torqued pleasure. The imagined cottage, the oblique approach to which is a romance, sits pretty. Why a quivering aspic? This slightly outlandish window into my no interior, we said, sensations. The way the alleged storm affects the globe on a dish upon a table and the somewhat inclement outside turning to hell, it shivers totally. A quaint time of day. Even the streets glisten, a dark sort of description. It's all right. Don't come. all just decay with imprecision. The experiment in stillness isn't death, it's an attempt toward season. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Carrie.
So, okay. Am I live? My volume was off for a minute. That was beautiful. That was very, I felt sort of healing with those sounds kind of washing over me while I'm also nervous. Okay, so yeah, thank you to everyone for this great, amazing lineup. I'm also like kind of in awe of everyone I'm reading with. Okay, so I'm going to read from my book. It's called Vibratory Milieu, and then I'll point to two others at the end, and I guess I'll tell you a weird story about that when I get there. And the last Nightboat reading, Kazima Lee messaged me to read some pages, and I wasn't ready for that, so I didn't have them, but I figured, well, that's how I'll organize my reading. I'll just read a little bit from the last section. And this is a collage, long collage poem that is, I guess you'll see, but it's, there's a lot of film like kind of quotes, which are obvious in the text, but maybe not reading. So just keep that in mind. A play of preferences, prefaces. This is not a Beatrice narrative. If a return is a new type of progression, prayer is left on the floor, Beverly is absent. It's absolutely ludicrous how mechanical a person can be. The silence between the songs parallel to the dream's memory. Its stuff in the ether, truth, like art, is in the eye of the beholder. You believe what you choose and I'll believe what I know. The pre-chorus versus the bridge, a kindness interwoven with aloofness, a life lacking any trace of mystery. The binary revealed as contingent. He was shooting at mobile Black sociality walking down the street, Fred Moten. A girl's identity is a kind of loss. As soon as I say your name, you walk through the doorway. I'm game for anything, I just want to know how much you charge. If the vibration fills the room. Women especially are held to get to know. Opposition that erases difference. Aladdin's lamp swish. There was snow and it was damaged in places. The rising tide of the non-specific. Fear that if you lose focus, you lose your entire self. What seems to be a unity is actually a subtle chronology. Writing through waiting. Alluding to romantic things, but not saying romantic things. Continuous plenitude. Unclear if I'm critiquing myself or someone else. It took 20 minutes for me to remember the word skyline. There is no God except God. When will the binary category of sex be obsolete? 3-leaf clovers, the few yeses obscuring 1,000 no's. Immutably factic. Fear specificity announced through generalities. At arm's reaching. Full moon in Cancer hiding behind a cloud cover. Whatever it is, I want it on the rocks. People who leave during intermission, all lit by a dim red light. A piece of string is coming off my wrist and I start pulling it. I am stitched together. What's needed in the meantime, how the dream's fire itself seared through the dream. On the top of a mountain, all of us holding different cleaning supplies. That which one becomes but can never be. As many sexes as there are individuals. The kink of seeing attractive men's unconscious patriarchy and consciously submitting to it, simultaneously ducking and leaping. Everyone confused about whether he's dying or he's not dying. Street names and dreams that only make sense phonetically. The sea level actually dropped by about 1/4 of an inch. Your sense of humor is going to ruin our marriage. All conclusions provisional. Everyone against the hats because of gender essentialism, maze of upholstery, the desire to give birth, the result of social practices, gender as an activity, repetitive, men completely obtuse about the power differential they're benefiting from, no idea what to do with lace. The robot doesn't understand what I mean. Male poet reading a sexist line, but because he was boring, I didn't care. A symmetry that is not monotonous. In my locker were wings that looked like nets I could wear for hope, mudra for concentration, collapsing currencies, my list of topics to talk about, to deliberately reverse perspectives, plotting to have nothing happen, voting for coral, thorns, covetousness, expect residual delays, sex itself gendered, how the experience of art exists within the space between you and the art. Surprised that my dream body remembered what my actual body was going through, insisting on a sensuality of sorts while raging against gender. We are in a big living room with a giant fireplace with wooden owls surrounding us, and we are staring into the fire. He won't sleep in public, unfortunately. The skyline evaporated, becoming an in-between neitherness. There is a van filled with silver shoes. The text is dilatory. My country denies the Pacific Ocean, telling everything you need to say in bursts of laughter. My boss gave me carrots. Don't assume I'm normal. Epiphanic, incorrect intuition. If anyone understands me, then I wasn't clear. The tables may have been turned, but the tables are invisible ones. Whether describing things that do not exist brings them into existence or not. Having lost my interiority. Someone is in the background as if there is a background, but there's not a background. The question of whether marriage equity is assimilationist. The only trace is a button. Maybe extract is the actual word, but the word in the dream was siphon. Forgetting while not forgetting, just holding it in your consciousness in a different way. My topic is a little bit different from your topic, but that doesn't mean we're at cross purposes. Progress being a nostalgia for the past, but going forward to it. In the middle of the dream is a memory of another dream. The dark side of puppies. Okay, and then I'll switch to Microsoft Word. And so I just moved and everything's in boxes. So when Cole had this wonderful idea to point to another Nightboat book, I was like, well, I don't know where to find them. So I remembered I was trying to write a prose collage style review, book review of 2 books. And I sort of gave up on it because it didn't feel like it was coalescing, but I thought I'd try and read it a little bit from that. It's Hazel White's Vigilance is No Orchid, and Melissa Mack's, it was Timeless Infinite Night, book that was absorbed into Nightboat, so I think that counts. Her book, The Next Crystal Text. And I'll put some links up for you. If I can find. Hi, Jessica. You have a direct message to me, and now I have to find everyone. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Okay, so Melissa Mack's The Next Crystal Text and Hazel White's Vigilance is No Orchid. Both examine tropes of beauty and architecture, space, energy, trespass, and the body. And Vigilance is No Orchid, the pivotal point is the beginning. The negation of the title is the negation of the subject matter, which is the subject matter. Memory, circling back to it, upon it, towards it, remembering memory. We learn about landscape architect Isabel Green, cerebral invocation that becomes somehow mixed with amorousness and envy, but turns out to be about space. How many times at readings did I hear and write down Melissa Mack's line, it cuts to imply water? How formation across space and time is habitual, as if subjectivity is inside the book. The connection between the crystal, the religious book, and subjectivity, a list of habits as ways of being, ways of becoming, energy in the body, a sort of currency. Is this the body of the poet, the body of the garden, the body of the plants in the garden? Energy as message, taking pieces of the world and transplanting them elsewhere. Diasporic textuality, bourgeoisie but stealing it, trespass, fragmented, repetition, poetry, and garden. The bruised survival underground, waiting until survival turns to thriving. Warning against Horizon's lack of embodiment. Lil Wayne, SF Sidewalks, Judy Blume, Mr. Muhammad, How One Might Like to Sleep Sometimes. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margarita Farah, 2 Chainz and Drake, Jim and the Holograms, then connecting to classical ancients, understood only by those with nurses who don't speak Latin. Images that look like stars, meant to represent crystals, maybe, how stars are related to the formation of the crystal, and also how the mountain helps the process. A clue of intention tells us we are unconnected and must strive to find a way in. A seamless departure. We are all already leaving. Nothing is in a vacuum, but there's quite a lot within a vortex. The marriage of garden and architecture is landscape. Submission to the garden, bowing under it, but also trespass, as if the art is too art to be inside of, and yet the personification of attention. The steps in the process of the formation of the crystal listed: 1, awareness; 2, arriving; 3, accreting; 4 and 5, awaring, but also the cycle is not complete. Pearl formation, a sexual parallel, but then a description of pilgrims and a reliquary. Some crystals come from liquid. Landscape into page. A beginning starts with a decline proposition that is half lie. Of what is not told, or if what is not told is X or Y. A recalcitrant orientation, a polyandrous vocabulary, a silence that bursts. After you become yourself, who you are to be, the flow stops, becomes static, stationary, unmovable. The obliteration of walls, separation, to speak or to die. I come out with it. Architecture, agriculture, aerial. Physical earth reveals itself as persons. The rejected versus the emitted. Kanye references embedded into a Nina Simone reference, or vice versa. Biblical reference encoded into atomic structures relating atom to atom. Crystals have habits. A tetrahedral, as a tetrahedral is a daydream, a desire. The urgency of travel, how light moves through a body, urgently traveling, urgently thought, another form of travel. Time, the crystal's formation, sense of time, adverb meaning contrary to expectation. The word aspect, italicized. A mountain engaged in the action, vapor, aroma, the crystal's sense of time, which includes awareness. The connection between awareness and what you wear. A cycle you're not at the end of yet. The eroticism of formation. The visceral, described, dry sage and fog. The bridge, gravel, vine, gully, leaves, boulders, all of it, perhaps, baking. Dis of discord and or dis of dis, 2 S's. The burdensomeness of mining was never improved in the entirety of ancient times. Intense focus on a project, but staying silent about it while it's being stalked. A collectible emblem ornamentation. We want all these beautiful things, but they come to us on the arm of the undead. Hazel White's gardens architecture, forcing a shape versus cultivating one. Something about radicalization of the social and mutual indebtedness as an act of resistance, and the interdependence and cooperation of nature with each other. As if nature is not a proper name, but many parts of an ecosystem. Instead of math, loose lines, dispersal, the act of one thing surrounding something else. And I think I'll stop there since I guess my time is up. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. And I guess I'm next. So I'm going to share a screen and we'll hope for the best. I'd like to thank all the other readers today. I was just so happy that this came together and was so looking forward to hearing everybody. So thanks again. And thanks again, everybody at Nightboat. So I'm going to be talking about this book, which just came out, and it is 20 half poetry, half essay pieces on various landscape artists who are approaching the form in non-traditional ways and in ways that are maybe inherently phenomenological, recognizing the role of the viewer in the view and recognizing the responsibilities that come along with that, and our innate relationships with the earth. So I'm going to start with a piece on the American prose writer and visual artist, Renee Gladman. And this is from her this is a piece on her work called Exemic Cities. And it's just an excerpt from the piece. A city in the distance is always something toward which a city in the distance is always rising up against, and rising within is always a city whose name is always on the tip, recalibrating the angle of the hand poised over the paper. The hand puts down the pen and goes off to make a cup of tea, while the distance of the city only increases, the distance between the hand and its own semantic possibilities. Renee Gladman's drawings could be many things, but they happen to be cities. They are vertical cities, built of sheer ascension, ascending across great expanses, and still expanding, hand over hand, the intricate fingership, gestured and acrobat, embedded in the graphite, the finest scintillations of all the lighted windows receding across the plain. It was a city moving away, called by others to which it was linked through an intricate network of threaded silence emanating from late streetlights and the darkness honing in, getting closer and closer to the shadow of a walker who, beneath a wash of ink, occupied it all so that the shadow could think. Gladman refers to buildings as other kinds of beings, also thinking that only architecture creates the possibility of coming in. The entire west wall of Gladman's studio excuse me, the entire west wall of Gladman's studio is a bank of greenhouse windows through which sunlight washes in and across the paper, across which precise characters migrate themselves into habitable structures. As Gladman says, architecture again, it always comes back to that. Entire countries in which there is nothing not arcing or texturing in a crystalline accrual. We wait for the salts to bind, and the tiniest bird, perfectly worded, breaks through the fine facade. All drawing and all writing are necessarily made by hand. Once inside, the hands multiply, splay, delta-like, feathering into living, gestures of ash within gestures of glass. And as if overhearing our very thoughts, a second city suddenly reigned above. We looked up into open, uncontrollable cathedrals, all sparkle and stark in their elemental assertion, infusing flint into the fevered greens that cleave and leave the leaves to dissipate into aerial meadows, intricate in their grasses interwoven, which too we suddenly find we're reading. I like a pencil's relationship to the space behind it, which goes on back forever because a pencil is innately phantomatic, singing to itself through an inner phosphorescence. Interviewer, do notions of ephemerality, fragility, or spontaneity come into it at all? Gladman, I wish I had more time. The second piece is on a video by an Algerian installation and video artist named Zineb Sedira. And it's on her piece called Lighthouse in a Sea of Time. The piece opens at night with an oddly bright amber bird flying by against dark hills. The first part of the work consists of 4 screens on which moving images of short duration are intermittently projected. The bird appears on the screen in the lower right. The 4 screens often show echoes, often larger details of other screens, just slightly offset in time and scale. Another bird passes and then is enlarged on the screen to the left, at which point we see that, in fact, it's actually a patch of light rippling across the facing cliff at regular intervals. And then it's dawn, very calm, with clouds building up out to sea. A chain link fence runs down to the shore with a bird perched on almost every pole. Cap Caxine Lighthouse, built in 1868, along the coast just outside Algiers, shining 25 miles out to sea. From that high up, you can see far down the coast and the endless waves, the rhythm of days. Another dawn. Someone flicks a curtain open across a brilliant window. Another window, this one spotted with rain, is echoed on the next screen by rain now running down in streams, while on the next, the camera backs up to give us a longer shot of the storm blowing through trees, followed by the pale shadow of parallel bars gliding across a pale wall because another window that we can't see is opening. Or it's evening, seen through the rotating panes of the lamp and its shadow cast and seeking a place to land. A white boat passes far offshore. It's the only time we see a vessel out at sea, which seems ironic, as of course, boats and ships are the only reasons that a lighthouse exists. And the last piece I'm going to read is an excerpt from a piece on the French filmmaker Agnès Varda called Here, There, and Then Now. Landscape of rain raining down a street. People move more slowly in the rain because they're suddenly anonymous, which gives them more time. I am time. I'm old. I've been crossing time for years. Landscape of later, rain raining down the house, reappearing on the windows of a train. Umbrellas and small sails, the theater of the sea. Landscape of sand dunes, the sun cut into seagulls. Landscape in the shape of a breeze, breeze in the shape of its trees. Varda said that her favorite landscape is the sea, having grown up partly in Sète on the southern coast of France, where her first film, La Pointe Courte, considered by many to be the beginning of French New Wave cinema, takes place against the background, salted brittle, the splinter of air that crackles between them. Out there, the boats, just a liquid line of lighted windows, a candle lit upon a table. Or a landscape through which runs a river, both sides lined with trees, slightly therefore flowing green. The bells strung between follow in slight distance, reflected on the panes of an orangerie. Or a landscape of evening shadowing the park, landscape of ventriloquist in nearby pavilion, the land itself a voice coming through a white sheet thrown over a chair, landscape of a sheet of sun made of bees, landscape of openings resembling faces, flushing when addressed. And so maybe there really is a heart in each small box, all so strikingly alike, the face fading back and the heart reduced to a sound, keeping time. If you give yourself time to sit there, time is part of the work. Varda often focused on people often unheard, vagabonds, gleaners, cleaners, shopkeepers, villagers, landscape embodying, even enabling character. Her penultimate film, Visage Village, with the face of all of France moving smoothly behind. That said, it's the gleaners that is, for many, particularly central to her work, which is fitting, as all film is a gleaning. Any film only gets leftover light, that which is not absorbed by things, and this makes us aware that the same principle determines all that we are and are not able to see. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'd like to gesture toward the Lebanese author, writer. She writes in many, many genres and is also a visual artist, Atel Adnan. And Nightboat has been a really great supporter of her work. In 2014, they published a 2-volume collection that gathers together pieces from over 50 years of her wide variety of writings, including a lot of political writings, which have been very important in the Arab world. They also have published 4 collections of poetry, Night, Surge, Time, and Shifting the Silence. And I also wanted to point out that they've been really supportive also of her visual work. Both Stephen Motika, the director and publisher current of Nightboat, and his partner, Fodi Javanis, were among the first people to recognize the importance and the excellence of her painting and her other various visual arts. And Fodi has a gallery, Callicoon Fine Arts in Manhattan, and he gave her 2 solo shows really, really early on in her career and helped frame and introduce her to the world. She's now extremely widely recognized, but in part thanks to them. I'm going to read the opening 3 pages of the 2018 volume, Surge. Rains return to the sound of their origins when night begins to spread. Over the land, the night is as long as a city's deserted avenues, or the way to distant galaxies. The animals feel the disorientation. Thoughts are metallic and melt in salt water. Their frequency increases the melancholy, the pervading melancholy. Meaning is ephemeral. The world reverberates its disorder, creates waves of determination. A lit candle can bring out the whole absurdity of victories. To look at the stones out there, the cracked wall, the rain. When a child, I was found in a basket, they said, full of roses, with ribbons too. No thorns were mentioned. Much has to do with what we mean by reality. Is a basket's reality a concept or a tool for keeping our feet grounded physically and mentally? And was the basket as evident as the child? We have a few certitudes to lay our shoulders on, and still we go on opening the shutters, welcoming friends in cities left over by wars. Thank you very much. And I'm going to now introduce Erica Hunt.
Hello, everyone. That was wonderful, Cole. I was completely enchanted, immersed. Thank you. Let's see, I want to thank the New Orleans Poetry Festival, as others have, and I'm also very excited to be reading with today's readers, Aditi, Cole, Mónica, Noah, Carrie, and the writer Nightboat writer that I want to lift up and highlight is, in addition, of course, to the wonderful Akilah Oliver, who was a friend and whose work was just reissued, I want to lift up Rosamund King, All the Rage, recently released. And also, I wanted to read just one poem from her earlier book, Rock, Salt, Stone, which is a Lambda Prize winner and so forth. Nightboat does a great job. Also, thanks to Kazim and to Stephen. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful press to be part of. This is called Another Day. I'm not going to read all of it. Another day. This is by Rosamund. Sometimes you just get tired carrying all the things in your hands, all the people on your back, and you stumble. Keep going. You cannot fall. You cannot. cannot fall. Good reminder. Oh, sorry. I'm going to read from my Nightboat book. I'm so pleased with it. It's a new and selected Jump the Clock, and then I'll read a new poem. Surplus, future imperfect. When the smoke lifted, there was no promised land in sight, no place to make a phone call, no lounge to use the soap in, no holy days, no spirituals, no speeches intended to solder you to earth, no seams between the excuses and platitudes, no reason to get up, no stops, no long nights of man-made objects, no more of the same, no difference, no table of contents, just a list of demands, no anecdotes, we were getting paid by the hour. No benefits, we were temporary workers, no music, we're in corporate ambience, no seatbelts, the entire world seemed unsafe. No geography, tourists were made at home with identical decor, no libraries, information out of the picture, no thought police, we all became deputies. We never let a line blur. That's an old poem. Sometimes your poems become kind of prophetic. Someone matching your description. You wake me up, Veronica, to escort you to the door to the unknown. I am slapped awake and paperless, my eyeglasses abandoned on the ledge, startled, a tongue triggered dry, steering into eyes emptied of the exact shape of mercy. You see, they are ice. You, Veronica, are beside yourself, your face a burned down house. Count me in so I can walk with you, Veronica, though you are mostly alone, even dry-eyed at your own funeral, even being of two minds is not enough. You know, when Jacob wrestled with an angel, I wonder who wrestles with me? I wonder who wrestles with me or you even to argue reasonable doubt when I know they never leave their guns. They carry them everywhere into churches and bars and courtrooms. They put scare quotes around the world. They are never mistaken. There are no words for mistake, no words for mistake, no reason for indefinite register. They speak in a prose that refuses to be tamed by thought's inflection. It seems to be always mad as hornets in a front pocket, inedible, stuck on the fear of deserved reprisal. The axe that never quite falls. Hold that thread, please. So they call to query, you pray, footstool, shadow, someone's back to stand on, to enable them to climb the ladder faster, unletter the ladder faster, and limit equality to a single call, a single meaning, a single tongue, a simple song. For how long? There are no words for mistake. No obvious thread that binds the master to the missing supply of mastery. Even sleeping histories, abolished fictions, live absent the bigot, whose afterthought is our undermine. Just one knowing what is known from before, and knowing what the owners of copious knowing know, without speaking, say without saying exactly. Be my scapegoat, my sex toy, my just dessert, my bowl of candy, prophets, my penciled thought, my extinction. Here it goes. Suspicious activity. 43% of the people killed were not in the middle of committing a crime, but were stopped for suspicious activity. A resting face. She abandoned the cloud and chose to go out on foot. She was missing a grin. She knocked at the wrong intersection. He defeated a match stick. He crossed diagonals. They moved past an uncovered spot. They lost pump. He was bowing in erratic directions. She was running by spurious gloat. They were potential troublemakers, did not fit the turned down dressing of the neighborhood, who was speaking in concealed carry. He bolted out court dizzy, thinking free from the lockdown. She traced the body that refused to fit a grammar of disappearances. She studied how Black people getting excited in a manner different than others drive some people to blunt displays of panic and violence. She studied how Black people getting into the streets in manners broader than others drive some people into blunt displays of panic and violence. Lamenting in an appropriate structure has rendered her hoarse from not screaming. She is blind from reading from the inside of her lids, and I would show you where it happened on a map, but the cursor of the public's attention has vanished. New poem. I think I have a few minutes to do this. Compliance. It's the new word, compliance. I live between the folds of not enough and way too much, satisfying neither. I drop in and out of compliance, a paper folded accordion style, drop a pin through the folded map, see where you land. I can never tell if I have crossed the line. To solve this, I am asked to describe end sides of the story. For instance, she, I, they cross their feet. She, I, they cross out of line. She, I, they step on a sidewalk crack. The cobblestones are full of them walking away from a conclusion. She, I, they know this is dangerous. Capitalism abhors a vacuum and will fill in no matter how many lines she, I, they cross out, facing in or facing out. Facing in describes facing out. She, I, they are supposed to reach a conclusion or suffer unknown consequences. The name tag facing out is supposed to shorten the tension of not knowing, but winds up drawing attention to how little is known. For instance, she, I, they pick up the wrong set of keys this morning, and the rest of the day will be spent finding a way to get into locked places without the right key. She, I, they am not supposed to know this side of things. Reading to the end, undoing the binding of the rule book makes her, me, them illegible. But with practice, she, I, they learn to read with always having to wear her, my, their glasses. To stay on the right side of realism, we avoid staying on the right side of realism. We avoid being crushed. How could she, I, they trust the signs? Sometimes she, I, they had no choice but to cross the street, perfecting her, that my, their echo under lock and key. The air was thick, hot. A street cleaning machine was noisily blowing clouds of wet soot and molecules of trash and exhaust into the air, stressing the sidewalks and curbs. She, I, they find lines beneath her, my, their feet. She, I, they don't know how they got here. When she, I, they speak, she, I, they think riddle. Can anyone follow this? But then sentences follow and let on that there is violence spoken here, even if it is a whisper. There's a bruise, a noose, a hatchet, a gun. A Black person in obvious distress spun as if their body had a broken spring or taken a punch. So every pore was sweating, and so they were twirling and shedding clothing, one shoe off, a shirt undone, an open belt, language too, uncurled and frothing. That it could be her, me, them, distracted by the fatigue of the day, diligently seeking transportation, but instead finding one has unwittingly crossed the line, stepped on a crack, trusted the wrong sign. Thank you. I think, is it Noah next?
It's Mónica.
Mónica, sorry, Mónica next.
Mónica de la Torre.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. What an incredible reading. I'm so honored to be with you and grateful to Cole for organizing it. Congratulations on your new book. It's so exciting. I can't wait to actually get my hands on it. And thanks to Nightboat and the New Orleans Poetry Festival. Really good to be here. So I'm going to read a few older poems in my book, Repetition 19. It's the book that came out last year with Nightboat. and then I'll read you a new book, and then I'm going to read you from one of my favorite Nightboat books. And that's really hard because I love the press. And so, but it was easy to choose one. I'll tell you why when I get there. Don't want to get ahead of myself. Okay, I'm going to begin with discontinued repetition. You'd like to keep things simple, elemental. Avoid tying yourself into knots over what you can't come to grips with. Dark drives, miscalculations, the facts around the clock. Or else arrange your twined strands into arresting patterns. Or else the ring of those two words roping you in. Roped off is the alternative, but you know it's pointless to keep things separate. Pretend you're given enough rope. What will you do with it next? Rope a dope? While you consider options, I salute how quietly you defy flatness, your multi-purpose materiality. Who's you, by the way? It's difficult to say. I tangles up easily. The incidental beauty of non-objects. A reluctant shaman in the guise of a nuisance, a screeching child, promises to purge us subway riders of our general discontent. Let the wind of change speak through his squalls and babble. Dada. Think of it as anti-poetry produced by tiny but sturdy windpipes. He too embraces the formless, rejects the regime. Mobilized is the experience of confusion where the familiar is made unfamiliar and vice versa. A woman massaged by her partner on the subway platform, his fists hot stones. You're a scared animal. Did I mishear that? Stone in Korean is also anniversary. Precious stones are reminders, but other types of petrifaction commemorate the past too. Change it into object. Take stones dangling from a wood beam. They appear yielding through sheer optical effect. On the opposite end of the spectrum are monuments. Puddles undo their monumentality, turn statues and towers into shimmering surfaces on the sidewalk. It's slippery outside. Hovering cautiously, we too negotiate between gravity's pull and our vertical aspirations. A mirrored image is a non-material photograph, an event. The same goes for the choreography of banners waving in the air. They announce nothing but an otherwise invisible presence. It's audible, though, as if chasing away something. Earworms, for one. What the wind has to say today, it says only in passing. Boxed in. Heads up. False friends use familiarity as camouflage. In the source language, deciduous might be confused with apathy, but nothing could be further away from decidia than the timed impermanence of leaves. Yes, even forests engage in a form of family planning. We took for granted the tree outside our window until it failed to bud. A ginkgo, they cut it down when the building across the street went up. Since our view is limited, we like to imagine the situation from the missing tree's perspective. Given the recent turn of events, it might have resisted blooming. It was protesting its decorative use to boost property values. Or perhaps, after millennia of honing its particulars, it refused the magic of tree-lined streets. Concrete blocks these social beings' access to fungal networks, prevents their roots from interconnecting. Are you a reluctant loner like the specimens that surround us here today? I hope you understand I don't mean to ruin the relationship. Intimacy and Discourse, a comedy in 3 movements. This poem is after paintings by Thomas Noskowski, a really wonderful painter who passed away last year. And so there's 3 paintings and three sections. 1, Stickman steps back containing multitudes of hues. Ta-da, he mouths, since he's mostly narrow bands of diffused colors. A rainbow faded except for the saturated, tender-looking red square for a heart and the sore ball of his left foot supporting the tilt. Not to mention the display of acid green on the crown of his head and wrist signaling the mind-body connection. The histrionics in the perfect tension between dexter and sinister. Welcome to showbiz. 2, this binary roadblock here demands that you back off to keep contemplating it. It fancies itself a zebra standing on diamond patterned stilts for camouflage's sake, and fastens itself to an equally ornamented attachment as if to hide from its handlers. Forget it. It's not interested in establishing any rapport with you. Blame it on instinct. It knows how coveted equids are in the North American private sector. 3. Here's your morality tale, an optical conundrum psychoactive puzzle. The dominant lines lock, while the areas they delimit contain other lines within of the faint, disjointed variety. Like interconnected people and the basic storylines they each cling to remind themselves of themselves. Yes, this is redundant. In this picture, both types of lines compete for your attention so that the eye's only resting spot is a central area where color has enough room to settle. That old positing of linear thought patterns versus the dispersal of feelings and their counter tendency to ground. In the source language, disparate, pronounced disparate, is nonsense. Place an accent on the wrong syllable and it becomes shoot yourself. Let's not overthink this. Divagar. There's a lot of waiting in the drama of experience. Lynn Haginian, Oxita. No signal from the interface except for a frozen half-bitten fruit. Other than that, no logos. An hour is spent explaining to the group what I've forgotten to do with the mistranslation of a verb that means drifting but can imply deviance. The next hour goes by trying to remember, in the back of my mind, the name of the artist who makes paintings on inkjets. Why I think of him escapes me. Now my gaze circles the yoga bun of the tall woman in front of me. I didn't pay $20 to contemplate the back of her head. It's killing me. The pillars and plaster saints with their tangers floating amid electronic sound waves. At such volume, they could crumble. The Virgin safe in a dimly lit niche as the tapping on my skull and the clamor of bones or killer bees assaults the repurposed church. This is what I sought, while in another recess, I keep hearing Violeta Parra's Volver a los 17, and 17-year-olds marching against the nonsense of arming teachers. If I were an instrument, a bassoon, in the source language, we don't say spread the word. Pasa la voz is our idiom, easily mistaken for a fleeting voice. From the back row, all I see is fingers gliding in sync with her vocalizations. How fitting a last name like Halo. Lucky for us, time here is measure and inexplicable substance. That's when I decide to stop fighting the city, use it in my favor, speak with strangers, demolish the construct in the performance. Then I'll read a translation, one of the translations that's kind of like the backbone of the book. There's 25 different translations of a poem that I wrote in Spanish called Equivalencias. And this translation follows a procedure by a really wonderful Mexican poet who was based in San Diego and Tijuana, and his name is Heriberto Yepes. And he kind of writes in between other people's writing and then takes out the source text, and what remains is his translation. So this is called Mother to Daughter. You feel that dose of adrenaline gushing through your body before you open your mouth to say, it's not enough. No, it's not enough to take a picture of a view that almost leaves you breathless. Wait, I screwed this up. I jumped a line. I'm gonna go back, I'm sorry. Mother to daughter, you feel that dose of adrenaline gushing through your body before you open your mouth to say it's not enough. No, it's not enough to say something's not enough either. Just like it's not enough to step back to take a picture of a view that almost leaves you breathless. No, the camera will never see what you see, and insufficiency keeps invading forests as much as eucalyptus trees, was what she said before she threw what remained in her cup into the sink. For bitterness has never been her thing, and she added that, apropos of insufficiency, it is not comparable to the sum of negative and positive numbers, which sometimes, only sometimes, end up canceling a sign as if by magic. There was a fixed destiny, but the routes toward it were many, and just contemplating them made her lethargic. Upon opening her eyes, she looked in the mirror and saw her pupils reflecting the image of herself looking in the mirror. It was nighttime, and had she not turned on the light, her triplicated image would not have appeared to her with the definition of aluminum on a plate of glass. The enemy becomes infiltrated to the point of becoming indistinguishable from a friend. Upon their fusion, both achieve the same degree of cruelty. Likewise, the scattered grains of salt boding bad luck in plain sight, but for whom is the question no one asks. I nonetheless didn't say it in vain, since by saying the less, I conjured insufficiency again. And if we're talking about repetition's consequences, that there have been some, it has been proven. In hindsight, deep into your flight's course, your words shone lighter in all the splendor of their opacity. So I'm going to read you one new poem that's called December. Who can say where we're going? To be sure, I'd split my attention, so not looking back. I couldn't tell if I'd succumb to the logic of the gimmick when breaking. Things to make the stone stonier, when even the scare, not a cliche, quotes demanded to be in quotes. When the numbness setting in was as frightening a prospect, there was something to be said about technique, like the technology of looking away from one screen to have the eyes land in a scene from a music video on mute on another screen. False, no show, priority style, parent, margin, pagination, widow, orphan, font, family, theme, minor Latin, scene. Code visible all of a sudden, scrambling everything like malware or virus. In that frame, an extravaganza of go-go boots, a dollyish queen, and a cowboy leaning on a horse-pence fence, all glam, saturation, and radiance. What I'd wanted here was to place a comma, take a breather, retrace my steps, but we jumped into the new year sitting down, broadcasting ourselves wrapped, not wondering how. We ended up here in another corner of the web where delusion kept up its recruital of denialists denying, denial strategy or tactic, the question unanswerable even in hindsight. A line for each day of the month reminding me of Kathleen Ladik's saying only in performance did she figure out what her scores meant. Later we'd know that the actions to settle the score, so to speak, were no improvisation, so I ascribed them to a time prior to their having happened. Would they, like the truthism that was once an oft-told lie, repeat again? So the work I want to point you to is by Wilson Bueno, who was a Brazilian journalist and writer. And the book that Nightboat published in 2017 is called Paraguayan Sea. And it's an incredible book. It's fiction, but it really is like poetry, poetic fiction. And it's written in 3 languages. It's written in Portuñol, Portuguese, and Spanish with a lot of Guarani. But Portuñol has its own codes. It's a little bit like Spanglish. And the translation that Nightboat published is wonderful. It's by Erin Moray. And what she does is use French, English, and Guarani. So I'm going to try to honor this incredible book by reading just from the opening parts, and we'll take it from there. Yes. Avis, make no mistake, Guarani is as essential to the story as the flight of the bird, the speck on the window, the cooing of French, or the cascade of Neruda-esque outpourings in a single seul suicide of capacious English words. One's the error of the autre. Maybe I'd wanted at times to end up ingesting in this zoo of Zen, the essential curl of sensation in the tail of l'escorpion. Just this, I was désirant of all that vibrates and buzzes beneath, far beneath the langue of silence. Il n'y a pas de langage là, only the vertige de langage. It tells me I exist. And because of this, I will chant my Marafuna floozy song aloud along the beaches of Guaratuba, forbidden by the old guy who drags his butt around the house like a pale being gone cold, suffering the old guy's acts as necessary evil, never killing him despite my efforts to endure nights and days of pure abuse and a macabre obsession with tricking his grizzled neck skin. No, believe you me, I speak truly. I didn't kill the oldie. And then there was Le Boy with his thighs clenched, hard, concocted strength of men in his shoulders and the obsessive meat of his sex with which obsessively he seeks and hunts me. Me, his prisonnier and chasseur. Nay, I'm the Katyn Trollope of this beach town, a Marafona floozy. Ici in Guadatuba, I survive by my wits. Ah, and my happiness is divine before the sun. That crystal ball, charged with the future like a bomb that will explode the uranium of the day. My sea, the sea, mère de la vie, that je porte on my back like a madame très digne, strut tut to the guillotine. Oh, God have it. Oui, there's God and there's my gob. What can anyone do? Thank you so much.
And now Noah Ross.
Sorry, I'm trying to find Noah's name on here. Give me just a moment. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can.
Great. Wow. Mónica, thank you so much. Repetition 19 and Paraguay and Sea are both incredible books that just blow my mind in terms of what language can do. It's such an honor to be here and share space with all these incredible Nightboat authors who I learn so much from continuously. So thank you. And thanks to NOLA Poetry Festival for having us, and to Nightboat for putting us together, to connecting us, and for all the work that you have done and continue to do. It's a real honor. Wow, the alphabet has really dealt me a difficult hand. So I'll see what I can do. I'm going to read from my book that just came out with Nightboat called Active Reception, and then point to one of the first Nightboat books that found its way to me, which is Nathaniel's Sorrow and the Fast of It from 2007. And I'll talk about that in a bit. Where to start? I'm going to read from the middle of this book today. I felt called to do that. Let me find that first. So I'm just going to read these two pieces that are kind of in touch with each other, some smaller poems, see what time is like, and then move on to the sorrow and the fast of it. Thanks for being here. It is dark now in the hollow at the base of the blanket. It is quiet. There are only shapes where there are shapes, each other, swa lu, swa olo wen, from swelgen or spelgen, as in swallow and incorporate and absorb and imbibe and devour. And there are countless co-formations blotting by my witness in flagrante, as in blazing with indelicate delineations, a noun from the participle of a verbal form of a noun. Sacred fluids passed from form to form found themselves the self-same in the self-same base of the self-same blanket. There are the self-same shapes and countless co-formations, blotting by my witness in that most confused category of your annals. Prick the whole of my most loose canon in the dress of the clergy brazen. I am against your basic nature. It is somewhere in the bowels of my night haunts, sloping by the verdure. Hold the little twig, let it breathe in the confines of a body basin. It has passed the gates of my gates, read a hellmouth to nether regions, dried as a sand or the husk of our millstones, little twig among the countless co-formations, rotting by nigh keepers are mere reapers want to harvest in the ritual of production as a labor. There is no right to a rectum, has no straightness, nothing proper in an etymological steering. There are word shapes, not the self-same, but the self-same. Blank stairs cut no stalks this grim heaping. Let the greens reach high heaven so the bottom stays our bottom, save the throngs of conflagration. Here wasters want a respite from the bosses of babies and making. In the countless co-formations, I am stooping to a level-headed back room, come shot to nowhere but caverns of the annals of molars. There are inroads and outroads and byroads and dry roads. I am hoodless in witness, bared head to shrift my litmus. I am that utterly confused category, notorious and indecent. Let all crops grow till waste rot, my waste rot verbatim temptation, heart communes of spoils. We are bred bare in the bare bread teeming. There are countless co-formations on the banks of rank gesticulations of the sauna or the bathhouse. Drips are dank as restorations. There are the selfsame faces in the selfsame waters are the selfsame traces. There is my dust to your dust to our dust where we are placeless. Hi, oh, I yawn, oh, gape, stand open, pause, connect, badly, amazed, in wonder, bawl out, utter, sing. Last time was fun. My cracks are still leaking of anther, a kind of lotion, let breed. Hi, are you open for gape? Pause, connect, badly. Breath is a kind of excretion, utter, seed. This place smells like dried cum and sausage, burnt, limp, rabid, dungeons and cellars and buttons of priors, let gyre association. Around and around, slip through folds beneath rest, attest under hirsute skies aplenty. Sip a deep slink to stink a blessing phrase softer than one baby's has grown tough in this climb where could tear flung open once as sore as puncture. For one moment, spreading glory, parted rivers, seas, an eagle. Let them dance like in Chicago. Fingers splaying whole fists on the couch of a familiar apartment in Brooklyn were made private by the bastion to the bedroom. Walls are not walls in this demolition of my submission. Ready at the right time in the right place, I am emptied of all prior consumption. Pull the arch in the figure out, this etching repoussé in dreams of internal hammering. Come full flight, wings spread at lengths unholy, as an exorcism of my needs revealed as apocalypse. Here on this scroll, hear your name as an indication of my ecstasies. There is the sex act, there is that beyond the sex act. There is little to no difference, as in one in the same, as in when the rain comes in and the mountains roar and the ground so wet it might slip beneath me, holding on ever so tight under my feet with my soles barely gripping. There is the bare life and there is the manner in which a life is lived, its quality, its textures, its music, like the passage from biopower to bottom power to power bottom to bio bottom. In this ecosystem without states, but only pleasures crossing, without subjugations, merely active submissions, ready at the right time, in the right place, with the right refusals of the spectacle of matter, the acknowledgement of preservation as a tactic might be read as a positive, indeed the focus on life as opposed to the sovereign threat of death, indeed a new technology, indeed a kind of analytics. Can we exist outside power or past the fringes of acceptable, speech refusing entrance to the caves or meadows or beaches of the ligament where this finger meets this nail, this sharp ending, not an ending, but the middle of the idle thing, not playing, but being played, praying to be betrayed, or something else like trust, or the kind of love surrounding us as collective or as kinship or gay mafia. An awareness of the thing, each relation, albeit fraught, so tender, keep in check all that are with me in sickness and in health, in edge times and on the straight and narrow, whole beds of communal presence, be you here or there or elsewhere, nowhere, I feel you still sloping by the verdure that I'm using, that I'm cruising by the pines or by the waters used in the, by the waters in the rusted irons that were useful once, were put in use once, this little sloping haunt, this bit of punctuation of the line, or for my breath to pause a moment, lay still a moment, without you feels so strange, as though this bay is not this bay without you, not this gay without you, weighing me down the outside, feel my body sloping at the thought of it, sloping, wrought at the moment of collective loss, considerate, sloping. Let me dwell on this dwelling, swell on the bare matter of factness of an ending, holds no ending, the paths that fill me deeper, dig deeper, keep tending, not just myself, but these grasses, my friends exposed by the force of it, the nope of this here graph, the joke of this here wrath, the choke of it, at the close, steepen direction in ascension, growing toward this climb. There's no end to this drive, beg no head to it. After, that is, after he passed a dread to it, tagged fake pettibone to a wall, there's no mend to it. And that's for Kevin Killian, who I'm sure many of you know. And I'm just going to read a few more short pieces and turn to Nathaniel. Some earth thing cave-like, lick the tip, play sweet of turn, teeth tart across air, regions, metal. Drive down into like fjords, low as to groundwater, in raw heat, these deep greens feed lean as in extra labor. Vitriol, all chemical, green as vast desires, compress, exhumation, complex preservation, flailing one of one weight to melt for, eighth in flask, to form seal for errors, being celestial, no names, attributes of service, one of over the other, feel me under stigmata, the weight of a name. I think I'm going to put that away for now and turn to The Sorrow and the Fast of It, which means so much to me. I kind of picked this selfishly. It was the first book that really made me a devotee of Nightboat. And Nathaniel's work in general with Nightboat is astounding. I give away more Nathaniel books than I can manage to keep in my library at once. Highly recommend Asclepius the Milkweeds, incredible book. Really everything. Mausoleum of Lovers, the Guibert notebooks, an incredible work, super important. To talk about this book, what can you say? It's a city book, a body book, a threatened book, a wanting book, a canine book, a mystery book, an in-between book, a hybrid book, a loose book, a binding book. And to give you a sense of that, I'm just going to read from the first 2 pages. Thanks for being here. It is possible to write one's day through letters, a letter. Here in this city, the letters are many and the days are many. The city that was to be every possible thing that came before. I admit I exalted it. Now there is the broken glass river and our cut up feet. Now there is a horizon of hydro lines and bridges. From a distance, they might be beautiful, but underfoot, there is a small island of herons. And just beyond the beginning hunting ground, gunshots, the dogs madden, city dogs, their hearts furling. And me, I bark along with them. I think that gives it. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you, everyone. Those were just amazing readings. Just what a great variety. We can't thank you enough, and everybody for coming and listening. We actually have a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions or wants to make any comments to any of the readers or to each other or anything at all. And don't, we're not in class. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just speak out.
Hey, everybody. That was incredible. Amazing to hear from all the new books and so great to be here with you guys.
Well, it's all your fault.
It's all Stephen's fault, really.
No, but the tremendous effort that you all have been going through for 15 years, it's nice to get a chance to celebrate that.
Maybe we could all unmute to applaud.
I think we all have to be unmuted. Is that right, Jonathan?
Not anymore. People can unmute themselves now.
Okay.
You go, wow.
Yay.
Hey.
I'm here from Colorado. It's so wonderful to listen to all of you people from NOLA. Thank you so much.
I'm wondering how much geography we're covering here. I see someone from London. I see someone from Paris.
Yeah.
Where else are people from?
Uh. Huh. Arkansas, yeah. Brooklyn.
Wisconsin? San Diego?
Wow. Awesome.
Queens? Great. Baton Rouge, Ohio, which is everywhere in the US apparently.
Yeah.
Quite centrally located.
Awesome. Cambridge.
I see we've got a few people here in the Bay Area, Carrie and Megan Briseth, right? And I know we have a couple others too, I think. So I'm just cheering for the Bay Area because that's where I am at the moment. Berkeley, okay, Noah, you're in Berkeley, yeah, great. Well, maybe it's time to say thank you again to everybody and looking forward to seeing you at something else soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Yeah, we've got 2 more
Yeah,
shows.
thanks to all of you. It was a great reading.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Cole. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
You.
Great hearing you.
And seeing you. I love this where we all get larger as we all get fewer.
It's in place of the after party, formerly known as the after party.
Yeah, exactly. The backstage.
I miss all the
We do have
in
another
event
event right
chatting
after
and
this one, so
Oh, you do.
Stick
So we have to
around.
leave.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've
okay.
got 2 more events today.
New Orleans.